As people, we very naturally focus on changes of events, deltas, or endings. And a lot of people look at 25 years and then we go out of business in year 26. And it's kind of like, well, what did they do wrong is the question, right? It's like, I'm sorry, 25 years, what did we do right?
What do I love about Rhythm and Hues? Mostly the people.
It's not corporate, it's very familial.
We moved into our first house, my husband and I, because my husband worked here too. John Hughes was one of the people who helped us move our stuff.
I think our first contract was actually a film logo, so that was back in 1987. The computers weren't all that fast. And then there was no way of outputting it, so we had to shoot it to film.
We were just trying to get something, anything to keep us employed and being able to pay each other and make computer graphics. I think the majority of the unifying factor was that we saw character animation as kind of a long-term future.
La la la, la la la.
I look at some of the work we do and I just don't know how we do it. You know, to me it's just magic. The work that goes into the tiger or some of the other things we do, it's beyond belief.
As an animator, I just like the creativity of it. I can take a blank slate and create a performance out of nothing.
They're like, you know, concert musicians, concert pianists that are playing at the LA Philharmonic. They're at the top of their game.
We're at our peak, our pinnacle. It's so exciting.
All of us, I think, at the end of the day, are driven to create. And that's what really gets us excited and what drives us. The challenge with that is that in many cases, that can take over, or at least it can cloud your judgment. You're going to put in extra hours because you want to go the extra mile, and you're going to try to push things as far as you can as an artist, even if the project and the money for that project do not require or facilitate that happening.
Nobody's doing this for the money anymore. Maybe they were at some point, but they're not doing it for the money anymore. People are doing it because they love doing it, which is why I do it.
It's not done by the computer, it's done by a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the background working away night and day to get the projects done. We as visual effects artists and as visual effects companies do not participate in the profit of any of those films.
The visual effects business is a broken business model right now, and the only people who thrive in this industry, in the movie industry, seem to be folks who have profit participation.
At the beginning of 2012, we knew that we had to raise money. I made 4 trips to China. You know, I visited Taiwan a couple times, Hong Kong a couple times. You know, we hired an investment banker.
You hear little rumors, you hear things in the hallways, little whispers. Have you heard this? Have you heard that? It just gets your mind reeling, like all the hypotheticals of what could be going on, but you don't know. 20
months of delays at between 1.2 to 1.6 million per month. That's anywhere from $24 to $30 million of additional costs that we had to take on.
Other projects were supposed to take the people onto that project, and that project got delayed, and all these projects getting delayed puts you in a really, really bad situation.
You know, I was prepared to sell my shares of stock for $1 if somebody would invest the $15 to $20 million that we needed.
And then we had investors standing by who fell out at the last second.
We even had wire transfer information, bank account information, saying, here, give us the bank account, we'll submit, wire you this money by Monday morning. And over the weekend, we're like, okay, great, this is good, we're gonna get the money in because everything's been signed. And come Monday, the money just didn't show up.
And then we went bankrupt.
It's not to make the studios out to be the bad guys or anything like that. It's just the model of how we have set up this business is flawed. We build 500 shots, say, for $10 million or so. And that's what it is.
We'll hire up based on the contract, and then sometimes things just change. The making of a movie is not a precise science. There are creative issues in a movie as it's being done. During the post-production process, and sometimes even during shooting, the movie starts to evolve.
If the movie extends and we suddenly have to work for 3 months more or 4 months more, from the studio's perspective, they paid us $10 million for 500 shots. But from Rhythm & Hughes' perspective, now we're paying for the same artist for 3 more months that we have to continue paying their salaries. There's no other source of revenue other than coming out of Rhythm & Hughes' own pockets.
So our choices were to cut people's salaries or to lay off a significant number of people, or to work people overtime without paying them for overtime by restructuring their contracts. So those kinds of changes are very difficult changes to make, and I felt that any one of those would have so dramatically altered the culture of Rhythm & Hughes that they would have destroyed Rhythm & Hughes. And, well, you know, instead we're in bankruptcy, so I ended up destroying Rhythm & Hughes anyway. So, you know, maybe I should have done something along those lines in order to have tried to preserve Rhythm & Hughes.
We've had to chase a price point that's been dropping very rapidly. And the reason the prices have been dropping quite a bit, one of the fundamental reasons really is the tax subsidies that are being provided in Canada and the UK and other places. If a studio decides there's a $10 million project that they want to take over to, say, Vancouver and award it to a Canadian company, the Canadian company will bid it at $10 million, but the studio gets, say, $3 million back as a tax rebate. So the only way you even get considered for that film is to bid it at $7 million. And so we're now getting less money for the same amount of work.
And so the motion picture studios told the visual effects facilities that if you want to get this work, you have to do it in Vancouver, where you're spending $1 million, $1.5 million building a facility there.
And of course what happens is another country or region, state says, oh, well that's a good idea, we'll do that. We'll take our money and we'll take it from our taxpayers and we'll give that to the movie studios. And then of course all those people now go to this other place, because what the states and the countries don't realize is every movie they take a look at what's the cheapest place.
So you move to Vancouver, find a house, live there for about 9 months or a year, and then ultimately wind up getting laid off.
It is good to be in LA. This is one of America's economic engines. Hundreds of thousands of middle-class jobs. There's still no better place to make movies and television and music than right here in the United States. Entertainment is one of the bright spots of our economy. And that means that we've got to do what it takes to make sure that this industry and every great American industry keeps that competitive edge, so that more folks can find career paths like many of you have and get good middle-class jobs that allow you to support a family and get ahead.
I live the life of what some of my comrades had started a Facebook page called the Pixel Gypsy. You know, and it's not that I've never been good enough to land somewhere for the duration, it's that there never is a duration. I've been on the staff of 5 visual effects shops that were really well known, did amazing work, that all went bankrupt, most of them owing the artist money. You know, you're constantly on the go, chasing which government's going to give the greatest handout back to the studios. I've taken to just living in hotels the past few years, find it's a lot simpler. I got suitcases that were designed to fit in the trunk of my car, and it all layers in there. Yay, VFX. I got a king-size bed, I got a jacuzzi in my room. I have those little soaps that make me feel like I'm on vacation every day, and I love using those little soaps. I love the way they feel when you open them up. Rhythm and Hues was like a new girl in my life. I fell in love again, you know what I mean? Then on a Friday meeting, I had my heart broken, just like I have a million times. And now I'm just this kind of strung out, gray-haired old bachelor.
People want to have lives and families and houses, and just like anybody else. They're not trying to live rich. They're just trying to live their lives. And you can't do that when you have to live in a different city every 6 months, because you're as the studios chase the tax incentives, a group of artists have to follow.
I don't think the studios want visual effects companies to go out of business, because they have a lot of work that needs to be done, and they want us to be healthy. However, they, like any other person that has a job, they're given a budget, they're given a movie, and that you have to do this work for this amount of money.
Remember, this is a fixed bid. You absolutely cannot charge us more than the fixed bid.
You said there were some changes to the boards. What VFX are involved?
The additional shot has beautiful running footage of a car driving across the salt flats. The car then turns into water and morphs into 7 unique animals, all made of water. But one is made of fire.
That may be a little more than we bargained for.
This is a fixed bid.
A fixed bid would be you bid the work, and then no matter what the work is, that's the price that you get.
Filmmaking nowadays is very much a fluid situation. The shots change dramatically. You know, easily half of the shots that we bid could disappear and be replaced by other shots.
You know, this is the filmmaking process, and it's really difficult to go in and know exactly what you want.
Most construction that you see, most houses, skyscrapers, airports, they're built on a fixed bid, which makes sense because there's a blueprint where everything is laid out down to like every screw, every I-beam, every piece of glass.
People always compare it with building a house. You know, if you go to an architect, you want to make the changes. Well, if you agree to a plan and you lay the foundation to your house, it's going to cost you to rebuild that house. In visual effects, it doesn't work that way because we're not paid by the hour that we work. We get paid by the completed project.
If shots change, if they are lengthened, if they're shortened, if you add characters, you can ask for an overage.
But unless we can prove to the studio that there were additional shots or that there was in fact a very clear change of direction on the part of the director, you know, we just don't get much in the way of overages.
Now we've got this fixed price, you know, this fixed price bidding model where there's a fixed price, and the director just doesn't even have to really be there because the visual effects artist can just do it over.
The art of filmmaking seems to have changed a little bit over the years. It used to be that you'd have a script and you'd storyboard it and you'd have all 3 acts and then you'd go out and shoot. But nowadays they often start shooting without really knowing what Act 3 is going to be, and you know, it's really hard to have a fixed bid and a fixed deadline when the studio and the director haven't even agreed on Act 3 yet.
It's like getting in the car to drive somewhere and you don't know where you're going. You're like, well, do you have enough gas? Well, I don't know. I'm just driving.
When you're creating these huge fluid dynamic simulations like we did on Life of Pi, and they want to change this wave from going that way to this way or make the rain go completely differently, that's a lot of simulation time just to make the change. And then finally it gets shown to the client who says something like, why is it even raining in this shot? It's not supposed to be raining in this shot.
So now we go back, we do that work that we think we're supposed to be doing, we present it again. It goes back up through the chain of approvals, decision maker sees it, they give their feedback, then it goes back through the chain, the other direction, and we find out whether or not we're done or if we have to keep going.
And we understand that if you have a vision and you're moving toward that vision, but as long as you're moving in that same direction toward that vision, that's fine. You know, we're going to get there. But what we see often is that, you know, they'll be heading towards a vision, and you might be heading toward that vision for 6 months, and then all of a sudden they turn around and they're heading off in an entirely different direction.
If you're not a visionary, or if you don't have a visionary involved in a project and relies heavily on visual effects, it's not going to succeed.
The studios would not permit a director to shoot for a week or two on set and then say, tear down the set and build a new set. You know, that simply wouldn't be tolerated, because in the live action portion of filmmaking, everything is paid by the hour.
Pretty much everybody who's making everything happen on the movie set, it's by the hour. So the meter's running, the focus is dynamic, because it makes the director and the decision maker, whoever that person is, usually it's the director, has to be there. And there's someone telling them every second what the meter's at. And the creativity just rolls because everybody's so focused and the decisions are being made in real time. But when you remove the decision maker from the process, which is what happens in visual effects, the artist ends up getting to version 15, 16, 20, 30, and the client's never even seen it yet. You know, if the decision maker was wandering amongst the midst of the visual effects artists like they do the movie set, if there's ever a platform where that's needed, it's in visual effects.
It was a Friday that they told us that our paychecks were going to be delayed.
John announces to everyone that we're going to be late on payroll.
Been here long enough to know that that was the last thing John would ever want to do. And that's really when it hit home that you knew how bad it was.
It was like a perfect storm of crap happening all at the same time.
We've come close to hitting a wall in the past, but I think we've come close enough times that there was this sense of things will be okay. And this time was different.
My phone starts ringing at like, I don't know, what, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. People freaking out because apparently managers are now calling people and telling them that they're being let go.
9 p.m., Sunday night, all of these posts.
Facebook has probably the best information about what's going on.
Just going down the news feed.
You've got people being let go at every single level up the chain, you know, from like custodial staff all the way up to, you know, high-end visual effects supervisors, people who have been with the company, in some cases for like 17 years.
It is completely shock. And then staying up all night, texting, emailing friends, calling friends, not knowing if I'm about to get a phone call. Mentally preparing for that. It's like, it's 9 o'clock, I'm like, how late is it going to go until? Is it midnight? Do I go to bed at midnight? Do I go to bed at 1 a.m.? Do I stay up until 2?
Monday morning, we had our coordinators running around, and what they would do is they would go to people's desks, see if they were there or not. If they were there, then they had to find out if they were supposed to be there, or if they just hadn't found out that they'd been cut.
And that was just like a punch in the stomach.
Sad to see all the empty seats. Didn't get any work done that day.
And the entire time you're going like, well, why that person? Why this person? Why is that person still here? Why is this person gone? That guy was sitting next to me, and he's gone. Why am I still here?
For me, this workplace and my job, it's all about my interaction with other people. And I have my best friends that in my whole life I've met here at Rhythm, and people that, you know, I'm very attached to, you know, and so it's very sad.
I didn't really expect it to hit me as hard as it did, you know. It's still hard to talk about.
I asked him today, I said, John, how are you doing? And he's really, really sad. He's very, very sad that we're in bankruptcy. He's really sad about how many people are going to be affected by this. And I feel sad for that.
You know, we run this company for the people, and then to have hurt them so badly. It's really the antithesis of what we wanted to do.
You know, 2012 was a great year for movies. Hollywood shattered box office records with $10.8 billion in domestic sales, In fact, studio accountants have never had to work harder to prove nothing made a profit.
Life of Pi is the most rewarding experience I've had since I started working in visual effects.
Now, this is going to be a big night for some of you people because, as we all know, winning an Oscar guarantees a long, successful career in the industry.
To have 2 nominations for the company was incredibly exciting and validating, and on the other hand, full of irony. The company was shattering at the same time that all of this recognition was being heaped on us. So the night of the Oscars, what a mess.
This has been a very dramatic juxtaposition of being up for 2 Oscars and declaring bankruptcy at the same time.
And the Oscar goes to Life of Pi.
Having worked on this for many years, I wanted to thank some people, and I thought that was very important.
To our director, Ang Lee, you were an inspiration, and you made it an incredible journey for all of us.
Everybody had this little bubble of, hey, look at this, we did it. And then this odd slap in the face.
45 seconds in, I started seeing the red flashing light in the back saying, you got to wrap it up.
And then when they started playing that stupid Jaws theme, it was just insulting enough. I mean, in any other year, that might have been actually kind of funny.
To my children, Christopher, Thomas, Alexander, and Samantha, thank you for inspiring me every day. For my mom and dad, thank you for telling me I could do any crazy career choice I wanted. Finally, I want to thank all the artists who worked on this film for over a year, including Rhythm and Hughes. Sadly, Rhythm and Hughes is suffering severe financial difficulties right now. I urge you all to remember.
Bill gets, like, completely jawsed off stage.
It was emblematic of something that is wrong with this industry.
I don't know how they felt about the protests going on. Maybe they didn't want anything to be said about that. I really don't know what was at play.
If I can get the phrase being sharked into the cultural lexicon, I think that whole experience would have been worth it.
And then to top it off, you've got Claudio, the cinematographer, and Ang Lee not thanking the people who really did about 75% of the movie.
I cannot make this movie without the help of Taiwan. My Indian crew, my Canadian crew, Tom Rothman, Jim Geminopoulos, Gil Nader, David Womack, David Lee, my agent Karen Sage, and lawyer Ira Streck, and Joe DiPaolo. I have to do that.
Unfortunate is not a strong enough word, but it was. However, look at what it did. It galvanized an entire industry.
Ironically, I think the fact that the mic got cut off has done better to get the message out to the public than had I actually said it on the stage that night.
It gelled the entire VFX community into being horrifically pissed off at how they were being treated.
It's a catalyst for the change in this industry that's going to put it in the right direction.
Hi everyone, it's David Begnaud and this is Newsbreaker. Hop on your social media account and you may be seeing green. People are swapping their profile pictures into green squares, you know, like a green screen. It's all in solidarity with the visual effects industry. Teague Christie tweets, if you see a bunch of VFX artists with green icons on Twitter and Facebook, we're just showing folks what movies look like without us.
We've got some fantastic conversation happening. You've got people who are getting little green screen pins to wear, showing that they at least support the idea of having these discussions, even if we don't necessarily at this point have a clear vision of what the answer is. A lot of articles come out that sort of try to go through it and figure out, okay, what went wrong with Rhythm and Hughes? Rhythm and Hughes had everything going for it. They knew what they were doing. They had international facilities. They were making use of tax incentives. They won an Oscar. What the hell happened? And no one has any clear answers. It's sort of like every one of these articles just kind of rehashes the same stuff over and over again.
VFX firms and post houses are like nomads roaming the globe trying to find an economically viable place to be able to work. And it shouldn't be that way because, god damn it, you need us. And when I look into this from the perspective of someone who wants to get into the industry and do VFX work, and I'm sitting back and color correcting my own video or doing a chroma key and thinking about people not being able to be paid for it hurts.
If that trend continues, where we continue to do the impossible and we continue to make things extraordinary in a shorter period of time, and we continue to lose money, the visual effects industry will become extinct.
Every day, things change in this business. It changes like your laptop changes. The technology changes, the economics of the world change.
I've talked to plenty of people who are so affected by this and so hurt and so distressed that they're just going to probably go do something else.
I don't consider going out of business after 25 years of producing what we produced. I don't consider that a failure. Quite the contrary, I consider it a success. And I think that people need to have a little more appreciation for how difficult it was to stay in business as long as we did.
Visual effects and animation is a business. It's show business. And artist or whatever it is that your vocation is here, it's still a business.
The people who are artists will always be artists, and no one can ever take that away from you, right? Nobody can ever say, oh, well, we're gonna shut this business down, so you're no longer an artist. No way, I'll always be an artist. You can never take that from me.
It's the process. You have to enjoy what you're doing. And I did. You know, I enjoyed it very much.